Hi folks, it's Mike with GetMyTips.com with a tip for you on how to make a very easy meatloaf recipe. Now I know what you're thinking, what's so great about our meatloaf recipe? Well, our meatloaf recipe is as basic as it gets. This recipe is designed for folks with busy lives. Someone who says, oh no, what am I going to make tonight? And take some beef out of the freezer, put it in the refrigerator, and then when they get home, take about 10 minutes to whip up a very easy meatloaf. Also on this video, we're going to show you how to check the batteries in your remote control without ever taking it apart. We've all been there. You point it toward the DVR or the television, nothing happens. Well, we'll show you what you can do in an instant without taking it apart to determine if the battery's dead. Okay, for this easy meatloaf recipe, we are going to use Italian-style breadcrumbs. And that's because Italian-style breadcrumbs have a lot of seasoning in them. And remember, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. With that in mind, we're not going to chop up an onion. We're going to use half a cup of dried onions. And trust me, if you don't tell them, they won't know the difference. We're going to add 1 egg, 1/2 cup of ketchup, 3 tablespoons of yellow mustard, 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper and salt. We're using kosher salt here, or sea salt will work great. Then we want to add 1.5 pounds of ground beef or ground chuck. Now we plan on using this meatloaf for meatloaf sandwiches, so it's okay to use a mixer. If you're going to serve it with gravy or on a plate, you might want to mix it by hand. We're going to put down a sheet of parchment paper to help form the loaf. And the great thing about using parchment paper is when we drop it into the pan, it takes up all the space in the pan, meaning there's a good possibility we're not going to have to wash it when we're done. You will want to loosely cover the meatloaf with a piece of aluminum foil and then put it in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Now we can mix the topping that we're going to put on the meatloaf after 45 minutes. We're going to use 1/4 cup of ketchup, 1 tablespoon of yellow mustard, 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, however you say that, and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. We're going to mix it all together. Okay, it's been 45 minutes at 350 degrees. Let's take a close-up look at the meatloaf. Now we can cover the meatloaf with our sweet and tangy topping. And once the meatloaf is completely covered, we'll put it back in the oven, uncovered this time, for another 20 minutes. Okay, the meatloaf was in the oven at 350 degrees for another 20 minutes. Let's have a look at it. And watch this. We're going to use that parchment paper to lift the meatloaf right out of the cooking pan and put it right onto a sheet pan. And check it out. We don't have to wash this pan. Now, by placing the meatloaf in a sheet pan, we can use gravity to help get rid of the grease. We'll take a razor blade, a pair of scissors, a knife, something sharp to cut away the excess parchment paper so that the grease will flow to the end of the pan. As the meatloaf cools down, as you can see, gravity does a pretty good job pulling the grease out. Let's put this on a plate and have a look at it. And I assure you, it is absolutely delicious. And I would like to invite you to come back and leave us a comment after you make your meatloaf and let us know how it turns out. On your screen is the list of ingredients that we used for the meatloaf and the topping, so that you can hit pause on your phone or your iPad or whatever device while you're preparing the recipe. One last thing before we get started on the remote control tip is I want to invite you to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that when we post another video, you'll be notified. Thanks for watching. Okay, a quick way to check the battery in your remote control is to activate the camera on your phone and point the remote control at the camera. Push a button on the remote control and your camera will pick up the infrared signal. If there is no infrared signal, then the battery's probably dead.